The darkness of space swallowed the small frigate as it drifted between the ancient jump gates of Sol 9. Commander Elena Karen stood at the viewport, watching the distant pinpricks of light that represented the fractured trade nexus. Her reflection stared back at her, weathered face, dark eyes that had seen too many orbital skirmishes, and the slight furrow in her brow that never quite disappeared these days. "Commander, engineering reports the coolant leak is contained," Lieutenant Mauro Villain said, approaching from behind. His tall frame cast a shadow across the viewport, and his voice carried the crisp efficiency that had become his trademark. "Though Chief Horn says we're pushing our luck with these jury-rigged patches." Elena nodded without turning. "Tell him to document the repairs. Coalition Command will want a full report when we return to Outpost Kappa." "If we return," Mauro muttered. This time, Elena did turn. "That's not helpful, Lieutenant." "Neither is pretending we're not flying a rust bucket," Mauro said, his eyes flashing with the aggressive energy that had first caught Elena's attention during his assignment to the Aegis. 3 fleet wars, Commander, 3. And each time, the Dominion has crushed us without breaking formation. Now we're patrolling the outer rim with a frigate that should have been decommissioned a decade ago. Elena's jaw tightened. She'd had this conversation too many times since taking command of the Aegis 3 months ago. This ship may not be pretty, but she's got fight left in her. More importantly, she's got a crew that knows what they're doing. Mauro's expression softened slightly. "I know that, Commander. I just wish Coalition Command would realize that tactics from the previous century won't work against Archon tech. We need to hit them harder, faster, strike before they can calculate our trajectories. And that approach has worked so well for us." Elena raised an eyebrow. "The Dominion outguns us, Lieutenant. Their neural networks can predict conventional attack patterns before our ships even fire up their engines." The ship's internal comms crackled to life before Mauro could respond. "Commander Karen to the bridge. Priority transmission incoming." Elena straightened her uniform jacket, faded blue with the silver insignia of the Terran Coalition nearly worn away at the edges. "Duty calls, Lieutenant. We'll continue this discussion later." The corridors of the Aegis hummed with the low vibration of outdated reactors. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency, but Elena didn't miss the shadows beneath their eyes, the tension in their shoulders. Morale throughout the Coalition was at rock bottom, and her ship was no exception. 3 successive fleet wars, lost to the Archon Dominion, had taken their toll. Supply lines were stretched thin, colonies were considering surrender, and whispered rumors of famine had begun to circulate, even on the Central Worlds. The bridge was a small, circular room, dominated by holographic displays and manual control stations. Lieutenant Rhea Tanner, communications officer, looked up as Elena entered. "Commander, we've intercepted a distress call from the Helios convoy. They've encountered a Dominion blockade near Junction 7. Elena felt her stomach tighten. The Helios convoy carried vital supplies for 3 Coalition outposts, food, medicine, and replacement parts that could mean the difference between survival and slow death for thousands. "Show me," she ordered, moving to the central display. The hologram flickered to life, showing the convoy route and the sudden appearance of Dominion vessels, sleek, predatory shapes that had closed around the 6 unarmed transport ships like a vice. Then, the image froze, and all signals went dead. "That's it?" Elena asked, leaning closer as if she could force more information from the display. "Yes, Commander, except for this." Tanner tapped her console, and a single audio transmission filled the bridge. "Submit all cargo or starve." The voice was artificially modulated, the cold, emotionless tone of the Dominion's automated communications. Elena felt the eyes of her bridge crew on her, waiting for her response. The Aegis was the only Coalition vessel within range, a single, outdated frigate against what was likely a full Dominion strike force. Status report, she demanded, her mind racing through options. We're operating at 76% capacity, the operations officer replied. Weapon systems nominal, though the starboard railguns are still calibrating after the last maintenance cycle. Shields at 82%. Elena studied the tactical display. The Aegis wasn't built for direct confrontation with Dominion warships. It was a patrol vessel, designed for showing the flag and handling minor disputes. But those 6 transports represented too many lives to abandon. Plot a course to Junction 7, she ordered. Stealth approach. I want to see what we're dealing with before we make any moves. Commander, Morrow stepped forward, having followed her to the bridge. With all due respect, we should pull back and request reinforcements. By the time reinforcements arrive, those supplies will be halfway to a Dominion stronghold. Elena countered. We're not engaging directly. Not yet. But I won't abandon those people without at least assessing our options. She could see the conflict in Morrow's eyes, his instinct for aggressive action, wrestling with his respect for the chain of command. Finally, he nodded. Yes, Commander. Set course, Lieutenant Tanner. Inform engineering will need everything they can give us. Elena settled into the command chair, feeling the weight of the decision pressed down on her shoulders. And, someone wake up Chief Medical Officer Velis. Tell her to prepare for potential casualties. As the Aegis changed course, accelerating toward Junction 7, Elena stared at the frozen image of the Dominion ships surrounding the helpless transports. The blockade had snapped shut without warning, without negotiation. Typical Dominion efficiency. They didn't waste time on diplomacy or threats when overwhelming force would suffice. But overwhelming force was all they knew. And maybe, just maybe, that could be turned against them. The Aegis approached Junction 7 under minimal power, its heat signature masked by the ambient radiation from a nearby pulsar. The ancient jump gates, massive structures of unknown alien origin that had been repurposed by human colonists centuries ago, loomed in the distance, their energy fields rippling with blue-green light. Elena stood behind the sensor operator station, watching the real-time feed. The Dominion blockade had expanded, forming a perfect net around not just the convoy, but the entire junction. 8 warships, each at least twice the size of the Aegis, maintained position with mechanical precision. They've stripped the transports, Morrow reported, reviewing the data. Cargo holds empty, crews detained. They're being processed through that command carrier. He pointed to the largest ship in the formation, a sleek vessel bristling with weapon ports. Life signs, Elena asked. Stable, as far as we can tell. The Dominion doesn't typically eliminate prisoners. Too inefficient. There was a bitter edge to Morrow's voice. Elena nodded, her mind working through scenarios. Direct confrontation was suicide. A traditional hit-and-run might damage one Dominion vessel, but would alert the others, ensuring the Aegis' destruction. They needed something unexpected, something the Dominion's predictive algorithms wouldn't account for. Gather the senior officers in the tactical room, she ordered. We need options. 20 minutes later, Elena stood before a holographic display of Junction 7, surrounded by her command staff. Chief Engineer Jax Horn, a burly man with calloused hands and a perpetual smudge of grease on his forehead, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Medical Officer Sarah Velis sat with perfect posture, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Lieutenant Marovelin paced the small room, unable to contain his energy. The situation is straightforward, Elena began. The Dominion has seized control of vital supplies and blocked a critical junction. Coalition Command is aware, but has no assets in position to respond within the necessary time frame. That leaves us. With all due respect, Commander, Morrow interjected. What exactly can we do? The Aegis is outgunned, outmanned, and outclassed by any single ship in that blockade, let alone all 8. I'm open to suggestions, Lieutenant. Elena's tone was even challenging. Morrow stopped pacing. We hit them where it hurts. There's a Dominion refueling node 12 hours from here. Small garrison, minimal defenses. We strike fast, destroy their fuel reserves, and disappear before they can respond. It won't break the blockade immediately, but it will force them to redistribute ships to protect their supply lines. And announce our presence in the process, Elena countered. The moment we attack any Dominion facility, they'll know exactly where we are and what we're capable of. They'll adjust their strategy accordingly. So we do nothing. Morrow's frustration was evident. I didn't say that. Elena turned to the engineer. Chief Horn, what's the status of our shuttle complement? Jax straightened, surprised to be addressed. 3 operational shuttles. Commander, basic life support, minimal weapons. They're designed for transport, not combat. And their sensor profiles? A slow smile spread across Jax's weathered face as he caught on. Small, almost negligible against the background radiation in this sector, especially if we power down non-essential systems. Elena nodded. Dr. Velis, how many of your medical staff have combat training? Sarah Velis raised an eyebrow. 4, including myself. Basic certification only. That will have to do. Elena turned back to the holographic display. The Dominion excels at fleet warfare because they approach it as a mathematical problem. Ships, weapons, trajectories, all variables in an equation. But they struggle with asymmetric tactics, with the unpredictable. She manipulated the display, highlighting a Dominion relay station positioned near the edge of the blockade. We don't engage their ships directly. Instead, we target their communication and coordination systems. Small teams, surgical strikes. We create confusion, not destruction. Morrow frowned. Sabotage? That's your plan. Sabotage, psychological warfare, and patience. Elena corrected. The Dominion relies on perfect information and predictable responses. We're going to deny them both. It's risky, Jax commented. Those shuttles have minimal shielding. One hit from a Dominion patrol and... That's why we're not sending them in blind, Elena replied. We'll use the Aegis as a distraction, a false signature on their long-range scanners to draw attention away from the shuttles. Morrow's expression remained skeptical. And if they catch our teams? Elena met his gaze steadily. Then we adapt. This isn't a conventional battle, Lieutenant. It's a game of shadows and silence. Speaking of teams, Sarah interjected, who exactly are you planning to send on these missions? We're already short-staffed. Volunteers only, Elena assured her. I won't order anyone to take on this level of risk, but I suspect we won't lack for willing participants. She looked around the room, taking in the determined faces of her senior officers. The Dominion thinks in terms of fleets and firepower. We're going to show them that a single ship, the right ship, with the right crew, can change the equation. There was a moment of silence as her words sank in. Then, Jax pushed himself away from the wall. I'll need to modify the shuttles, increase their stealth capabilities, maybe rig some makeshift EMP devices. Do it. Elena nodded. Lieutenant Velen, I want a list of potential targets within the blockade. Communication relays, sensor arrays, anything that would disrupt their coordination without requiring direct confrontation. Morrow hesitated, then straightened to attention. Yes, Commander. Dr. Velis, prepare your medical team for both field operations and potential combat casualties on return. Sarah nodded, her expression grave. We'll be ready. Dismissed, Elena said. As the officers filed out, she remained by the holographic display, studying the perfect formation of the Dominion blockade. The Archon Dominion had broken 3 coalition fleets through overwhelming technological superiority and ruthless efficiency. But they had never faced an opponent who refused to play by their rules. 2 days later, Elena stood in the shuttle bay, watching as 6 crew members made final preparations for the first mission. They moved with quiet determination, checking equipment and exchanging terse words of encouragement. These weren't Marines or Special Forces. They were ordinary crew members who had volunteered for an extraordinary task. The relay station's security protocols cycle every 47 minutes, she reminded the team leader. Petty Officer Rees. That gives you a 3-minute window to access the main control node and plant the disruptor. Rees nodded, her dark eyes focused. We've memorized the approach vector and the station schematic. Commander, if there's a way in, we'll find it. Elena placed a hand on the young woman's shoulder. The priority is getting your team back safely. The mission is important, but not at the cost of your lives. Understood, Commander. Rees hesitated. But we all know what's at stake. Those supplies mean survival for 3 outposts. I know. Elena stepped back as the team boarded the shuttle. May the stars guide your path. It was an old spacer's blessing. One Elena's mother had taught her during her childhood on the orbital habitats of Proxima Centauri. The words felt hollow now, but traditions provided comfort in uncertain times. The shuttle bay doors opened, revealing the vast emptiness of space. The modified shuttle, its hull now covered in radiation-absorbing material that Chief Horn had improvised from spare parts, slipped out silently, immediately powering down to minimal life support. On the scanners, it would appear as nothing more than a piece of space debris. Elena made her way back to the bridge, where Morrow was coordinating the Aegis diversionary maneuver. The frigate had positioned itself at the edge of a dense asteroid field, periodically emitting bursts of radiation that mimicked a larger vessel's engine signature. Status? Elena asked as she took her seat. Dominion Patrol has adjusted course to investigate our phantom signals, Morrow reported. 2 destroyers have broken formation. The blockade remains intact, but their attention is divided. Elena nodded. Keep them chasing shadows, Lieutenant. The longer they focus on us, the better chance our team has. Hours passed in tense silence. The bridge crew maintained their stations with rigid discipline, but Elena could feel the nervous energy permeating the ship. This wasn't a conventional battle with clear objectives and tactics. It was a desperate gamble with lives at stake. Shuttle is approaching the relay station, the sensor operator announced. No indication they've been detected. Elena watched the tactical display, where a tiny blip represented the shuttle as it closed in on the Dominion relay, a critical node in their communication network. If the team succeeded, the Dominion ships would experience a temporary disruption in their ability to coordinate, creating confusion that might be exploited. Dominion Patrol is completing their sweep of the asteroid field, Morrow warned. Estimated return to blockade formation in 17 minutes. Understood. Elena tapped her fingers against the arm of her command chair. Maintain current emission pattern for 3 more minutes, then go dark. Let's give them something new to puzzle over. The minutes stretched like hours. On the display, the shuttle reached the relay station and disappeared from sensors as it docked with the structure's maintenance airlock. No alarm signals from the Dominion network, the communications officer reported. They're still in the dark. Elena allowed herself a small breath of relief. The first phase was complete. Now came the hard part. The team had to infiltrate the station, plant the disruptor device, and extract without detection. Commander, Morrow's voice cut through her thoughts. We have movement from the blockade. 2 more vessels breaking formation. Elena leaned forward. Heading directly toward the relay station. Morrow's face was grim. They're moving at full thrust. ETA 4 minutes. Cold dread settled in Elena's stomach. Warn the team. Tell them to abort and extract immediately. Channel is open, the communications officer confirmed. Team Rees, this is Aegis. Actual. Elena spoke clearly into the comm. Mission abort. Repeat. Mission abort. Dominion vessels approaching your position. Extract immediately. Static, hissed across the channel for several agonizing seconds before Riza's voice came through, broken and distorted. Almost complete. Disruptor in place. Need 2 minutes. You don't have 2 minutes, Elena insisted. Dominion ships will be on top of you in less than 4. Get out now. More static, then. Understood. Extracting. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they watched the Dominion vessels close in on the relay station. The shuttle was not designed for speed, and with its systems powered down for stealth, it would be vulnerable until it could put sufficient distance between itself and the station. Prepare for emergency extraction, Elena ordered. Calculate a micro-jump that will put us within range to provide covering fire if necessary. Commander, that would expose our position, Morrow protested. I'm aware, Lieutenant, but I won't abandon our people. Elena's tone left no room for argument. The sensor display updated, showing the shuttle detaching from the relay station just as the Dominion vessels came within range. For a moment, it seemed they might escape unnoticed. Then alarms blared across the bridge. Dominion ships have locked weapons on the shuttle, the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with tension. Execute micro-jump now, Elena commanded. All weapons to hot standby. Prepare for immediate extraction of the shuttle crew. The Aegis shuddered as its jump drives engaged, folding space for a fraction of a second. The stars blurred, and then they were there, positioned between the Dominion vessels and the fleeing shuttle. Dominion ships adjusting targets, Tactical reported. They're locking onto us. Evasive maneuvers, Elena ordered. Launch countermeasures. Communications. Order the shuttle to make for the asteroid field at maximum thrust. The Aegis twisted through space, its aged engines straining as it drew the Dominion fire. Energy beams lanced through the void, most missing as the frigate juked and weaved. One struck a glancing blow against the shields, causing power fluctuations throughout the ship. Shuttle is away, Morrow reported. Entering the asteroid field now. Good. Take us in after them. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair as another blast rocked the ship. How long until the disruptor activates? 30 seconds, if they manage to set it correctly, the tactical officer replied. Those 30 seconds felt like an eternity as the Aegis absorbed hit after hit, its shields weakening with each impact. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a chaotic maze of tumbling rocks that offered both cover and danger. Then, suddenly, the Dominion fire became erratic. Beams shot wide. Torpedoes detonated prematurely. On the tactical display, the communication lines between Dominion vessels flickered and died. Disruptor is active, Morrow confirmed, a note of surprise in his voice. Dominion communication grid is experiencing cascading failures across the sector. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Take us deeper into the field. Let's pick up our people and disappear while they're blind. The Aegis slipped between massive asteroids, its navigation systems straining to plot a safe course through the chaotic environment. The shuttle's emergency beacon pulsed weakly ahead, guiding them to the extraction point. I have visual on the shuttle, the sensor operator announced. Significant damage to the hull. Life support is failing. Get them aboard quickly, Elena ordered. Dr. Velis, prepare for casualties. The retrieval was executed with grim efficiency. The shuttle, its hull breached in multiple places, was guided into the Aegis Bay by tractor beams. Medical teams rushed in as soon as pressure was equalized. Minutes later, Sarah Velis's voice came through on the comm. 4 survivors extracted, Commander. 2 didn't make it. Elena closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the blow. 2 lives lost. 2 families that would receive the standardized message, died in service to the coalition. It never got easier. Understood, Doctor. Take care of the survivors. I'll be down shortly. She turned to Morrow. Status of the Dominion vessels? Regrouping, he reported. Their communication systems are beginning to recover, but they're still disorganized. The blockade has weakened on the eastern vector. Not enough for the transports to break through, Elena noted, studying the tactical display. But it's a start, she stood, straightening her uniform. Maintain position within the asteroid field. Power down all non-essential systems. Let's become ghosts while we plan our next move. As she left the bridge, Elena felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. 2 crew members dead, and they had barely scratched the Dominion blockade. But they had proven something important. The Dominion could be disrupted, could be made to falter if approached from an unexpected angle. It wasn't much, but in a war that had seen nothing but defeats, it was a spark of hope. And sometimes, a spark was all you needed to start a fire. In the ship's small medical bay, Elena moved between the injured crew members, speaking quietly with each one. Their faces were drawn with pain and exhaustion. But there was pride there too, a fierce satisfaction at having struck a blow, however small, against the seemingly invincible enemy. Petty Officer Rees lay on the last bed, her right arm encased in a regeneration sleeve, her dark eyes fixed on Elena as she approached. "Commander," she tried to sit up, wincing at the movement. "At ease, Petty Officer." Elena placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did well today." Rees's expression hardened. "Sorensen and Tyle didn't make it out. I should have ordered the team to extract sooner." "You completed the mission," Elena said firmly. "The disruptor is active, creating a vulnerability we can exploit. Sorensen and Tyle knew the risks, just as we all do." "Will it make a difference?" Rees asked, her voice low. "Really, Commander? 2 lives for a temporary communications blackout?" Elena considered her answer carefully. False reassurance would be an insult to this woman, and to the memories of those lost. "I don't know," she admitted finally. "But what I do know is that we've shown something important today. That the Dominion isn't invincible. That their perfect systems have flaws we can exploit. Whether that's enough, only time will tell." Rees nodded slowly, accepting the honest uncertainty. "What's our next move?" "Rest and recover," Elena told her. "You've done your part. Leave the next phase to others." After leaving the medical bay, Elena made her way to engineering, where Chief Horn was elbow-deep in the guts of a power conduit. The cavernous space hummed with activity as technicians worked to repair the damage from the Dominion attack. "Status report, Chief?" Elena asked, stepping carefully over bundles of exposed wiring. Jax looked up, wiping sweat from his brow with a greasy forearm. "Could be worse, Commander. Shield generators took a beating, but we've got them back to 60% capacity. The starboard engine coupling is twisted all to hell. We've bypassed it for now, but we'll need a proper space dock to fix it properly." "And our operational capability?" Jax considered the question, rubbing his stubbled chin. "We can move, we can fight, though I wouldn't recommend pushing the engines past 70% without risking a cascade failure. The bigger problem is power distribution. That last hit fried some of the automated systems. We're having to route everything manually." Elena frowned. "Can you fix it?" "Fix it? No, not with what we've got on board." Jax shook his head. "But work around it? Yeah, we're figuring that out. Old school analog bypasses. Not pretty, but they'll do the job." "Analog bypasses," Elena repeated, a thought beginning to form. "Manually controlled systems that don't rely on the ship's central computer?" "Right," Jax eyed her curiously. "Slower, less efficient, but more difficult to disrupt remotely. Why?" "The Dominion relies on predictive algorithms to anticipate enemy movements," Elena explained. "Their systems analyze patterns in energy signatures, communication frequencies, even the subtle radiation emissions from our computer cores." Understanding dawned on Jax's weathered face. "And analog systems don't produce the same patterns. They're unpredictable." "Exactly." Elena gestured to the exposed machinery around them. How much of the Aegis could be operated using these manual bypasses? Jax whistled low, considering the implications. Navigation, life support, basic propulsion. It wouldn't be pretty, and we'd lose a lot of our more advanced capabilities. But, yeah, it could be done. The Aegis is old enough that most of her systems still have manual backups. Make it happen, Elena decided. Prioritize stealth systems and minimal propulsion. I want us to be able to move without broadcasting our signature across half the sector. You're planning something crazy, aren't you? Jax asked, a gleam of interest in his eyes. Elena smiled thinly. Crazy is relative, Chief. In our current situation, conventional thinking is what's truly insane. As she left engineering, Elena's communicator beeped with a priority message. A Dominion broadcast was being transmitted across all frequencies, unusual for their typically precise communication protocols. She made her way back to the bridge, where Morrow was already reviewing the transmission. His expression was dark as he looked up at her entrance. You'll want to hear this, Commander. With a nod, Elena authorized the playback. The artificial voice of the Dominion filled the bridge, its modulated tones stripped of all emotion. Attention, rogue vessel. Your futile resistance has been noted. Only one ragged corvette stands between the Dominion and complete control of Sol 9. Submit now, and your crew will be processed humanely. Continue, and you will be erased from existence. The message repeated twice more before ending. Elena looked around at her bridge crew, noting their reactions: anger, fear, determination. They're trying to intimidate us, Morrow observed. Yes, Elena agreed. But they're also revealing something important. They're acknowledging our existence, our resistance. We've disrupted their perfect narrative. Or they're trying to flush us out, Morrow countered. Provoke us into a rash action. Perhaps either way we use it. Elena turned to the communications officer. Any word from Coalition Command? Yes, Commander. They've acknowledged our situation but have no assets available to render assistance. They advise withdrawal to Outpost Kappa. Elena wasn't surprised. The Coalition was stretched thin, fighting a losing war on multiple fronts. The Aegis and its small act of defiance were hardly a priority. And the status of the colonies dependent on the sea's supplies? The officer's expression was grim. Initial reports of food rationing have begun. Medical supplies are critically low on Veritas Station. If the blockade continues for another week, they estimate civilian casualties will begin. The weight of those lives pressed down on Elena's conscience. A temporary disruption of Dominion communications wasn't enough. They needed to break the blockade entirely, to free the captured transports and their vital cargo. Lieutenant Velen, she turned to Morrow, I need options for a more permanent solution. The disruptor bought us time, but the Dominion will adapt. We need to strike again, somewhere they won't expect. Morrow nodded, his earlier skepticism giving way to focused determination. I'll work with Chief Horn to identify vulnerable targets within the blockade. With our new analog systems, we might be able to approach undetected. Good. And have Dr. Velis prepare a report on the minimum medical supplies needed to sustain the affected colonies. If we can't break the entire blockade, perhaps we can arrange a targeted extraction of critical resources. As the bridge crew set to their tasks with renewed purpose, Elena returned to the tactical display, studying the Dominion formation. Their ships maintained their positions with mathematical precision, creating an impenetrable net around Junction 7. Perfect, efficient, emotionless, the hallmarks of Dominion warfare. But perfection had its price. The Dominion's reliance on predictable patterns and absolute control made them vulnerable to the unpredictable, the chaotic, the human. And if there was one thing the crew of the Aegis had in abundance, it was humanity, with all its messy, irrational, beautiful unpredictability. The next 3 days saw a flurry of activity aboard the Aegis. Chief Horn and his engineering team worked around the clock, converting critical ship systems to manual control. Navigation consoles that had once displayed holographic interfaces now featured physical switches and analog dials. Computer-controlled weapon systems were stripped back to their bare essentials, still functional, but requiring human operators rather than automated targeting. Elena spent hours in the shuttle bay, working alongside the volunteer teams as they prepared for a series of coordinated strikes against the Dominion blockade. The plan was audacious: simultaneous attacks on 3 separate targets, designed to create maximum confusion with minimal resources. Each shuttle will approach from a different vector, she explained to the assembled teams. Team Alpha will target the command carrier's external sensor array. Team Beta will disable the fuel transfer station, supplying the eastern quadrant. Team Gamma will plant remote detonation charges on the abandoned mining platform here. She indicated a point on the holographic map, creating a debris field that will force the Dominion to adjust their formation. None of these targets will directly break the blockade, one of the engineers observed. No, Elena agreed. But together, they'll create a cascade of problems requiring the Dominion's immediate attention. They'll have to reallocate resources, adjust their perfect formation, and in doing so, they'll create a gap, perhaps only for minutes. But minutes are all we need. The teams dispersed to make final preparations, their expressions a mixture of determination and trepidation. These weren't trained commandos, but ordinary crew members, engineers, medical technicians, maintenance workers, stepping up to perform extraordinary tasks. Elena made her way to the medical bay, where Sarah Velis was inventorying their dwindling supplies. The doctor looked up as Elena entered, her precise movements pausing momentarily. "Commander, I was about to send you my report on the colony's medical needs." "Walk me through it," Elena requested, moving to stand beside her. Sarah gestured to a display showing a list of critical medications and equipment. "Veritas Station is in the worst position. They're a research outpost with a high percentage of elderly personnel, without anti-radiation treatments and cardiac stabilizers. We're looking at 15 to 20 deaths within the week." Elena studied the list, mentally calculating what the Aegis could spare from its own supplies. "And the other colonies?" "New Calcutta can hold out longer. They have local production facilities for basic medications. Outpost Delta is somewhere in between. They need surgical supplies more than pharmaceuticals." "Prioritize Veritas," Elena decided. "If we can create a gap in the blockade, that's where we'll direct our efforts first." Sarah nodded, making notes on her tablet. Then she hesitated, her professional demeanor slipping slightly. "Commander, about the away teams. We've already lost 2 crew members. The next mission will be even more dangerous." "I know." Elena met her gaze steadily. "Every volunteer has been briefed on the risks. No one is being ordered to participate." "That's not—" Sarah stopped, reorganizing her thoughts. "I've treated the survivors, Commander. I've seen the psychological impact of what they experienced. The guilt, the trauma. Reese hasn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch since returning. She keeps reliving the moment when Sorensen and Till were hit." Elena felt a pang of empathy. She was no stranger to survivors' guilt, the crushing weight of returning when others didn't. "What are you suggesting, Doctor? That we abort the mission?" "No." Sarah shook her head. "I'm a coalition officer. I understand what's at stake. I needed you to know the full cost of what we're doing. Not just the lives lost, but the wounds that don't show on a medical scan." "I appreciate your candor," Elena said softly. "And I share your concerns. But right now, those colonies need us. The people on those transports need us. We're all they have." Sarah straightened, her professional mask sliding back into place. "Of course, Commander. My team will be ready to support the mission." As Elena turned to leave, Sarah added, "Commander, I'd like to volunteer for Team Gamma. My medical training could be valuable if there are injuries during the operation. Elena studied her for a moment, recognizing the determination behind the request. Are you certain, Doctor? We need you here as well. My assistant can handle the medical bay temporarily, and I need to do more than patch up the wounded after the fact. Elena nodded, understanding the sentiment all too well. Approved. Report to Shuttle Bay 3 at 0600 hours. The following morning, Elena stood on the bridge as the 3 shuttles prepared for launch. The Aegis had positioned itself within a dense region of the asteroid field, using the tumbling rocks as natural cover for the departing vessels. Final checks complete. Morrow reported from the tactical station. All teams report ready for deployment. Elena nodded, her expression grave. Remind them. The mission parameters are clear. Plant the devices, then withdraw immediately. No heroics, no extended engagements. Understood, Commander. Morrow relayed the instructions, then looked up with a hint of concern. You know the Dominion will be watching for exactly this kind of operation after our last strike. Yes, Elena agreed, which is why the Aegis will be providing a more substantial distraction this time. Morrow's eyebrows rose. You're taking us out of the asteroid field? Once the shuttles are safely away? Yes. Elena's focus remained on the tactical display, where the Dominion blockade maintained its perfect formation. Chief Horn has completed the analog conversion of our primary systems. According to his calculations, we should be able to approach to within 500,000 kilometers before the Dominion can get a clear reading on us. And then we make ourselves very interesting, Elena said with a grim smile. Interesting enough to draw attention away from 3 small shuttles approaching from the opposite direction. The launch sequence proceeded smoothly, each shuttle slipping away from the Aegis with minimal power signatures. On the tactical display, they appeared as nothing more than slight disturbances in the background radiation, invisible to all but the most focused scans. Shuttles away, the operations officer confirmed, proceeding on designated vectors. Very good. Elena settled into the command chair. Helm, take us out of the asteroid field. Minimal thrust, manual guidance only. Navigation, plot a course that will bring us to the edge of the Dominion's long-range sensors in exactly 47 minutes. The timing was crucial. 47 minutes would give the shuttles enough time to reach their targets before the Aegis drew the Dominion's attention. It was a delicate balance. Too early, and they would alert the enemy to their plan. Too late, and the shuttles might be detected before completing their missions. The Aegis moved slowly, deliberately through space, its engines operating at barely more than idle. Without the usual electronic signatures of a warship at full readiness, it might be mistaken for a civilian vessel, at least until it came within visual range. 30 minutes to sensor contact, the navigation officer reported. Elena nodded, then opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for potential combat maneuvers. This is not a drill. We will be drawing Dominion attention to allow our away teams to complete their objectives. Stay focused, stay disciplined, and remember, we're fighting not just for ourselves, but for the thousands of lives depending on those supply transports. She closed the channel and turned to Morrow. Status of the shuttles? Approaching their targets, he reported. No indication they've been detected yet. Team Alpha is encountering stronger than expected security protocols at the sensor array. Elena frowned. Can they bypass them? Working on it. Team Beta has reached the fuel transfer station. Team Gamma is in position at the mining platform and beginning to place charges. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. On the tactical display, the tiny markers representing their shuttles moved into position around the blockade's perimeter. The Aegis continued its approach, now close enough that the most sensitive Dominion scanners would be beginning to register its presence. Team Beta reports success, Morrow announced suddenly. Fuel transfer systems compromised. Eastern Quadrant vessels will begin experiencing supply issues within the hour. A small victory, but significant. Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before returning to the task at hand. And the others? Team Gamma is setting the final charges now. Team Alpha is still... Morrow stopped, his expression tightening. Commander, we have a problem. Dominion security protocols have locked down the sensor array. Team Alpha is trapped inside. Elena's mind raced through options. Can they bypass the lockdown? Negative. The system requires Dominion authentication codes. And Team Gamma, how long until they complete their mission? 5 minutes, estimated. Elena made a swift calculation. Helm, increase speed to 60%. Let's make ourselves more visible. Communications, prepare a tight beam transmission to Team Alpha with emergency extraction protocols. The Aegis surged forward, its engines pushing beyond the careful limitations they had maintained. On the tactical display, Dominion vessels began to react, their perfect formation shifting slightly as they registered the approaching ship. We have their attention, Morrow confirmed. 2 destroyers breaking formation to intercept. Good. Elena leaned forward in her chair. Weapons. Prepare to fire a spread of missiles. Maximum dispersion, minimum yield. I want them to register as threats, without causing significant damage. Commander? The weapons officer looked uncertain. That won't even dent their shields. We're not trying to hurt them, Elena explained. We're trying to confuse them, make them divide their attention, their resources. The missiles launched, streaking across space toward the approaching Dominion vessels. As predicted, they detonated harmlessly against the advanced shields, little more than bright flashes in the darkness. Dominion ships adjusting course, Tactical reported. They're moving to surround us. Let them think they have us, Elena ordered. Helm, execute evasive pattern Delta 7, but keep us within their sensor envelope. The Aegis twisted and turned through space, making a show of attempting to escape while ensuring it remained the center of Dominion attention. On the tactical display, more enemy vessels broke from the blockade to join the pursuit. Team Gamma reports mission complete, Morrow announced. Charges set, shuttle withdrawing. And Team Alpha? Morrow's expression was grim. Still trapped. But they've managed to plant the disruptor. They're requesting permission to trigger it manually. Manually? Elena's blood ran cold. That would mean... They wouldn't have time to escape, Morrow confirmed quietly. The Dominion would detect the energy surge immediately. Elena closed her eyes briefly, the weight of command pressing down on her. 3 crew members, volunteering for what amounted to a suicide mission. But if they succeeded, the Dominion's primary sensor network would be disabled, creating a blind spot in their perfect defense. Who's on that team? She asked, her voice tight. Ensign Jarrell, Lieutenant Costa, and Petty Officer Way, Morrow reported. Good people. Skilled officers with promising futures. Elena thought of their faces, their voices, the small personal details she knew about each of them. Jarrell's collection of antique star charts, Costa's dry humor during briefings, Way's dedication to mentoring junior crew members. Open a channel, she ordered. Channel open. Elena took a deep breath. Team Alpha, this is Commander Karen. I understand your situation. Jarrell's voice came through, surprisingly steady. Commander, we can complete the mission. The disruptor is in place. We just need your authorization to trigger it manually. Negative. Ensign, Elena replied firmly. Seek alternative extraction options. We'll create a diversion to draw attention from your position. With respect, Commander, we've explored all options. The lockdown is total. But if we trigger the disruptor, it will create a cascade failure throughout the sensor network. The entire blockade will be blind for at least 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Long enough for the captured transports to be moved, for critical supplies to be extracted, long enough to save hundreds, perhaps thousands of lives. At the cost of 3. Stand by, Team Alpha. Elena muted the channel and turned to Morrow. Options. The tactical officer shook his head slightly. The Dominion security protocols are absolute. Once a lockdown is initiated, it can only be lifted with proper authorization codes or... He hesitated. Or, Elena prompted, or a complete system reset, which would require shutting down the entire sensor array. Morrow's expression was bleak. Which is exactly what the disruptor would do. Elena stared at the tactical display, where the markers representing the 3 crew members blinked steadily. 3 lives against thousands. The cold mathematics of command that she had always dreaded. She reopened the channel. Team Alpha, this is Commander Karen. Your request is denied. Repeat, denied. Stand by for new instructions. There was a pause. Then, Jarrell's voice again. Tighter now. Commander, with all due respect, we don't have time for alternatives. The Dominion will detect the disruptor soon. This is our only chance to... You will stand down. Ensign, Elena interrupted, her voice sharp with authority. That's an order. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, Commander, standing by. Elena turned to the communications officer. Get me Chief Horn. Jax's voice came through moments later, breathless, as if he'd been running. Commander? Chief, I need a solution. Team Alpha is trapped inside the Dominion sensor array. The security lockdown can only be lifted with authorization codes or a complete system reset. What kind of reset are we talking about? Jax asked, his mind clearly already working on the problem. The disruptor they've planted would do it, but they'd be caught in the effect. I need an alternative, something that will reset the system without harming our people. There was a brief silence as Jax considered the problem. The Dominion uses quantum-locked security protocols, theoretically unbreakable, unless... Unless what, Chief? Unless we can create a massive power surge throughout their grid. Something that would force an emergency shutdown without destroying the physical infrastructure. Elena frowned. And how exactly would we do that? We'd need to get close, very close to the command carrier. Their power distribution system links all vessels in the blockade. If we could trigger an overload in the main reactor... The Aegis can't get that close without being destroyed, Morrow interjected. No, but we don't need the whole ship, Jax countered. Just our jump core. If we could detach it and send it on a programmed trajectory. You're talking about ejecting our jump drive? Elena was incredulous. We'd be stranded. Yes, Jax admitted. But the electromagnetic pulse from a controlled overload would create exactly the kind of system-wide reset we need. Every ship in the blockade would experience a temporary power fluctuation as their safety systems engaged. Including the sensor array, Elena realized, giving Team Alpha a chance to escape during the reset. Exactly. The lockdown protocols would default to open during a power restart. It was a desperate gamble, sacrificing their fastest means of travel for a chance to save 3 crew members. Without a jump drive, the Aegis would be limited to conventional propulsion, taking weeks or even months to reach the nearest coalition outpost. But the alternative was unthinkable. How quickly can you prepare the jump core for ejection? Elena asked. 20 minutes, Jax replied. Maybe 15 if we skip some of the safety protocols. You have 10, Elena decided. Lieutenant Velen, inform Team Alpha of the plan. Tell them to be ready to move the instant the lockdown lifts. As Morrow relayed the instructions, Elena opened a shipwide channel. All hands. This is the commander. We are about to execute an emergency procedure that will require ejecting our jump core. Brace for potential power fluctuations and prepare for long-duration sublight operations following the procedure. This is not a drill. The next 10 minutes passed in tense preparation. On the bridge, Elena watched as the tactical display showed the Dominion vessels continuing their pursuit, still unaware of the true nature of the Aegis plan. In engineering, Jax and his team worked frantically to isolate the jump core and prepare it for controlled ejection. Jump core ready for ejection, Jax reported finally. Overload sequence programmed. Once released, we'll have approximately 3 minutes before detonation. Understood. Elena took a deep breath. Tactical status of Team Alpha. In position near the exit point, Morrow confirmed. Ready to move on your signal. And Teams Beta and Gamma? Both clear of the immediate area, returning to rendezvous coordinates. Elena nodded, making her final calculations. The timing would be critical. Too early, and the Dominion might be able to contain the overload. Too late, and Team Alpha could be caught in security countermeasures. All stations, final check, she ordered. Helm, prepare for maximum thrust following core ejection. We'll need to clear the blast radius quickly. Acknowledgements came from around the bridge, tense, focused, determined. These were not the elite crews of coalition flagships, but ordinary officers rising to extraordinary circumstances. Eject the core, Elena commanded. There was a deep, reverberating shudder throughout the ship as the jump core, the beating heart of the Aegis' faster-than-light capability, was expelled into space. On the tactical display, it appeared as a small, bright object drifting rapidly toward the center of the Dominion formation. Core ejected, engineering confirmed. Overload sequence initiated. Detonation in 2 minutes, 57 seconds. Helm, take us away from the blast radius. Maintain sensor lock on the core. Elena leaned forward in her chair, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Communications. Alert Team Alpha to prepare for extraction on my mark. The Dominion vessels, detecting the ejected core, began to adjust their formation. 2 destroyers moved to intercept the unknown object, their sensors probing its composition. They've detected the core, Morrow reported, attempting to analyze. Let's give them something else to think about, Elena decided. Weapons, fire remaining missiles, wide dispersal pattern, target their screening vessels. The Aegis missile tubes emptied in a coordinated salvo, the weapons streaking toward the outer edge of the Dominion formation. As before, they caused minimal damage but created maximum confusion, forcing the enemy to divide their attention between the approaching missiles and the mysterious object drifting toward their command carrier. 1 minute to detonation, Tactical announced. Elena opened a channel to Team Alpha. Prepare for extraction. The system will reset momentarily. You'll have seconds, not minutes. Move fast and don't look back. Understood, Commander. Jarrell's voice came through, steady despite the pressure. We're ready. The final seconds ticked down with excruciating slowness. On the tactical display, the Dominion vessels continued their methodical analysis of the situation, still unaware of the true threat posed by the ejected jump core. Detonation in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash erupted at the center of the Dominion formation as the jump core's controlled overload released its energy in a massive electromagnetic pulse. The tactical display flickered and died momentarily as the Aegis' own systems were affected by the edge of the blast. Status, Elena demanded as the screens slowly came back online. Dominion vessels experiencing power fluctuations across the board, Tactical reported, his voice rising with excitement. Their formation is breaking down. Communication grid offline. Sensor network rebooting. Team Alpha? There was an agonizing pause before Morrow answered. They're moving, Commander. Lockdown protocols have defaulted to open. They're making for the maintenance airlock. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair, willing the 3 crew members to move faster. On the recovering tactical display, she could see the Dominion ships beginning to restore power, their systems gradually coming back online. Team Alpha has reached their shuttle, Morrow announced. Powering up now? Tell them to go to maximum thrust the instant they clear the dock, Elena ordered. Don't worry about stealth. Just get clear of the array. Minutes later, the shuttle appeared on their sensors, accelerating away from the Dominion sensor array just as the security systems began to reactivate. The Aegis adjusted course to rendezvous with the escaping vessel, its engines straining at maximum power. "They're clear," Morrow confirmed, a rare smile breaking through his professional demeanor. "All teams accounted for. No casualties." A wave of relief washed through the bridge, palpable in the loosening shoulders and released breaths of the crew. They had gambled everything, their fastest means of escape, their tactical advantage, on the lives of 3 crew members. And they had won. But, as the initial elation faded, the reality of their situation set in. The Aegis was now stranded in hostile space, limited to sublight speeds, with a Dominion blockade between them and Coalition territory. The 3 sabotage missions had created temporary disruptions, but the Dominion would adapt, would recover. "Status of the blockade?" Elena asked, her mind already working on the next phase. "Disrupted but not broken," Morrow reported, his expression sobering. "The command carrier is experiencing significant power fluctuations. 2 destroyers have moved to protect it. The Eastern Quadrant is operating on reduced capacity due to Team Beta's sabotage of the fuel station. The mining platform charges haven't been detonated yet, awaiting your order." Elena studied the tactical display, where the perfect hexagonal formation of the Dominion blockade had dissolved into a more chaotic arrangement. It wasn't enough to create a clear path for the captured transports, but it was a start. "Detonate the charges," she ordered. "Let's add to their problems." Moments later, the abandoned mining platform erupted in a series of controlled explosions, sending debris hurtling through space and creating a hazardous field that further disrupted the Dominion's ability to maintain formation. "All shuttles recovered," operations reported. "Teams are aboard and being processed through medical—" "Good." Elena stood, straightening her uniform. "Lieutenant Velen, you have the bridge. I'm going to check on our people." In the medical bay, Sarah Velis was overseeing the examination of the returned team members. Her uniform was rumpled, her expression tired, but satisfied as she moved between patients, checking readings and offering quiet words of encouragement. "Doctor," Elena greeted her. "How are they?" "Physically, in remarkably good shape, considering." Sarah guided Elena away from the examination area. "Team Alpha experienced some radiation exposure from the sensor array, but nothing our treatments can't handle. Teams Beta and Gamma had minor injuries, burns, lacerations, 1 concussion, all treatable." "And mentally?" Sarah's expression grew more serious. "That's harder to quantify. They've all been through extreme stress situations. Team Alpha, in particular, believed they were on a suicide mission until your last-minute solution. That kind of emotional whiplash takes time to process." Elena nodded, understanding all too well. "Make sure they get that time, and whatever support you can provide." "I will—" Sarah hesitated, then added, "Commander, what you did, sacrificing our jump drive to save those 3 people, it made an impression on everyone." "It was the right call," Elena said simply. "We don't abandon our people." "No, we don't," Sarah agreed. But not every commander would make the same choice. Elena moved among the returned crew members, speaking briefly with each one. They were exhausted but proud, their eyes bright with the knowledge that they had accomplished something significant, had struck not 1, but 3 blows against the seemingly invincible enemy. Team Alpha's members, Jarrell, Costa, and Wei, were clustered together in one corner of the medical bay, their bonds strengthened by the shared experience of near sacrifice. They straightened as Elena approached, attempting to stand despite their fatigue. "At ease," she said quickly. "You've done more than enough standing for one day." "Commander," Jarrell began, his young face solemn, "we want to thank you for—" Elena raised a hand to stop him. "No thanks necessary. Ensign, you volunteered for a dangerous mission and executed it flawlessly. If anyone should be thanking anyone, it's me thanking you." "But the jump drive," Costa protested. "We're stranded now, because of us." Because of a tactical decision I made, Elena corrected firmly. A good one. I believe we've created significant disruption in the Dominion blockade. The loss of our jump capability is a price I'd pay again without hesitation. She looked at each of them in turn. These three who had been willing to sacrifice everything for the mission. Get some rest. That's an order. We'll need all hands at their best for what comes next. As she left the medical bay, Elena's communicator beeped with a priority message from the bridge. Commander, we're picking up a Dominion broadcast. System-wide. All frequencies. On my way, she responded, quickening her pace. Back on the bridge. The atmosphere was tense as Morrow played the intercepted transmission. The artificial Dominion voice filled the room, its modulated tones unable to completely mask an undertone of anger. Attention citizens of Sol 9. Terrorist actions have been perpetrated against Dominion peacekeeping forces. These cowardly attacks will not be tolerated. All civilian traffic is hereby suspended until the perpetrators are apprehended. Increased security measures will be implemented immediately. Resistance is futile and counterproductive. The message continued, listing new restrictions and curfews being imposed on the neutral stations and outposts throughout the sector. Elena listened with growing concern. They're cracking down on the civilian population, Morrow observed as the transmission ended. Using our actions as justification? As expected. Elena nodded grimly. The Dominion always responds to resistance with increased oppression. It's part of their strategy. Make the cost of defiance too high for ordinary people to bear. So we've made things worse, one of the junior officers muttered. No, Elena said firmly. We've exposed the true nature of Dominion rule. They claim to be peacekeepers, to bring order and stability. Now they're showing their real face, the face of an occupying force that demands absolute submission. She moved to the tactical display, studying the altered configuration of the blockade. The Dominion vessels had regrouped, but were maintaining a looser formation. Their attention divided between maintaining the blockade and addressing the damage from the sabotage operations. The question is, what do we do now? Morrow asked, voicing the concern on everyone's mind. Without our jump drive, we can't outrun them if they concentrate their forces against us. Elena considered their options. The Aegis had struck significant blows, disrupted the Dominion's perfect control, but hadn't yet created an opening large enough for the captured transports to escape. And now, civilian populations were facing increased restrictions because of their actions. They needed something more, something that would break the blockade without causing further suffering to innocent bystanders. Something the Dominion wouldn't expect. Communications. She turned to the officer at the station. What's the status of the Dominion command carrier? Still experiencing power fluctuations. Commander, their communications array is operating at reduced capacity. And the captured transports? Holding position near the command carrier. No signs of crew activity detected. Elena nodded slowly, an idea forming. Lieutenant Velen, if you were the Dominion commander, what would you be expecting us to do next? Morrow considered the question. Another hit-and-run attack, possibly targeting the command carrier directly, trying to free the transports while their systems are compromised. Exactly. They'll be fortifying their defenses around the carrier and the transports, preparing for a direct assault. Elena's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. So, we'll do something else entirely. Commander? Morrow looked confused. The Dominion bases its strategy on predictive algorithms, anticipating enemy actions based on standard tactical doctrine. They expect us to follow conventional warfare protocols, even in an asymmetric scenario. Elena turned to face her bridge crew. So we're going to show them something their algorithms can't predict. Something uniquely human. What did you have in mind? Morrow asked, intrigued despite his usual caution. Elena smiled thinly. Nothing at all. In the hours that followed, Elena outlined her unconventional plan to the senior officers. It was met with skepticism at first, particularly from Morrow, whose tactical training rebelled against such an unorthodox approach. But as she explained the underlying psychology, the strategic rationale, even the hardened tactical officer began to see the potential. "It's not about what we do," she concluded. "It's about what we make them think we might do." The Dominion relies on certainty, on perfect information. When faced with uncertainty, with unpredictability, their decision-making processes falter. Chief Horn nodded slowly, stroking his stubbled chin. "And our analog systems give us the perfect cover. Without the usual electronic signatures, they can't predict our capabilities or intentions." "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "They'll be watching for another attack, another act of sabotage. When none comes, they'll become increasingly unsettled. They'll start seeing threats where none exist, diverting resources to counter phantom menaces. And while they're chasing shadows," Sarah Vellis caught on. "We create the opening we need," Elena finished. The plan required patience, a commodity in short supply given the desperate situation of the colonies dependent on the sea's supplies. But Elena was convinced it was their best chance. Direct confrontation had failed 3 times at the fleet level. Continuing to fight the Dominion on their terms would only lead to more losses. Over the next 2 days, the Aegis maintained position at the edge of sensor range, running silent on minimal power. The crew worked in shifts to complete the conversion to analog systems, creating a ship that was nearly invisible to Dominion scanning technology, a ghost in the darkness of space. On the 3rd day, Elena ordered a subtle change in position, moving the Aegis just close enough to be detected as an anomaly, but not close enough for positive identification. Then, they withdrew again, disappearing into the background radiation. The Dominion response was immediate, 2 destroyers breaking formation to investigate, sweeping the area with active sensors before returning to the blockade. Exactly as Elena had predicted. "They're jumpy," Morrow observed from the tactical station. "That's twice now they've dispatched ships to investigate sensor ghosts." "Good," Elena nodded. "Keep monitoring their patrol patterns. Look for any deviations from standard procedure." The pattern continued for another day, the Aegis appearing briefly on the edge of Dominion sensors, then fading away before a positive lock could be established. Each time, the response became more pronounced, with more ships being diverted to investigate. "The blockade is thinning," Morrow reported on the morning of the 5th day. "They've pulled 3 vessels from the eastern quadrant to reinforce patrols in our sector." "And the command carrier?" Elena asked. "Still holding position, but they've pulled 2 of the screening vessels to investigate our last appearance." It was working. The Dominion, unable to predict or understand the Aegis' behavior, was spreading its forces thin, preparing for an attack that never came. The psychological pressure of an unseen enemy was doing what direct confrontation could not, creating uncertainty in a system built on absolute control. "It's time for the next phase," Elena decided. "Prepare the shuttle for launch." The plan called for a single shuttle, modified with the last of their stealth technology, to approach the captured transports, while the Dominion's attention was focused elsewhere. Not to attack, not to sabotage, but to deliver a message. "Remember," Elena briefed the small volunteer team, "your mission is information, not confrontation. Get the data packet to the transport crews, then withdraw immediately. Do not engage Dominion forces under any circumstances." The shuttle launched during a period of heightened Dominion patrol activity, slipping through the widening gaps in the blockade with minimal power signatures. On the bridge, Elena watched its progress on the tactical display, its path represented by a dotted line threading between enemy vessels. "Shuttle has reached the transport cluster," communications reported, initiating docking procedure with the lead vessel. Elena held her breath as the shuttle connected with the captured transport. The data packet, containing details of the Aegis plan and instructions for the transport crews, would take only moments to transfer. But those moments would be the most vulnerable. Data transfer complete, came the report. Shuttle disengaging and withdrawing. The return journey was equally tense, with the shuttle navigating through patrol zones that shifted unpredictably as the Dominion continued to respond to phantom threats. But finally, the small vessel was recovered safely, its mission accomplished without detection. Now we wait, Elena told her officers, and prepare for the final phase. The waiting was perhaps the hardest part, maintaining the pressure of uncertainty on the Dominion while giving the transport crews time to prepare. The Aegis continued its game of hide-and-seek, appearing and disappearing at irregular intervals, never staying visible long enough for the Dominion to establish a targeting solution. On the seventh day, the sensors detected unusual activity within the transport cluster. Subtle power fluctuations, brief communications bursts quickly masked, signs that the crews were implementing the preparations outlined in the data packet. They're ready, Morrow confirmed, analyzing the readings. All 6 transports show signs of pre-launch sequences, hidden beneath routine maintenance protocols. Elena nodded, a tight knot of anticipation forming in her stomach. And the Dominion patrols? Still dispersed. The command carrier has reduced its screening force to minimum levels. They're stretching themselves thin, trying to locate us. Good. Elena straightened her uniform, suddenly aware of the weight of the moment. What they were about to attempt had never been tried before. A coordinated breakout based not on firepower, but on psychological warfare, on the power of uncertainty and fear. All stations, prepare for final approach, she ordered. Helm, set course directly for the command carrier. Full power to engines once we clear the asteroid field. Around the bridge, officers exchanged glances of surprise and confusion. For days, they had been operating under complete stealth, avoiding detection. Now, their commander was ordering them to approach the heart of the Dominion blockade at full power. Commander? Morrow questioned, his expression concerned. We'll be detected instantly. That's the idea, Lieutenant. Elena's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. For this to work, they need to see us coming. As the Aegis emerged from the asteroid field, its engines flared to life, pushing the aged frigate to its maximum velocity. On Dominion sensors, it would appear as a sudden, unexpected threat, a coalition warship on a direct intercept course with their command carrier. Dominion vessels responding, Tactical reported, the tension evident in his voice. Patrol ships converging on our position, weapon systems activating. Maintain course, Elena ordered calmly. All power to forward shields. No evasive maneuvers. The Aegis hurtled through space, a lone frigate charging directly at the heart of the Dominion blockade. On the tactical display, enemy vessels scrambled to intercept, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos as they rushed to protect their command center. They're targeting us, Morrow warned. Multiple weapon locks detected. Hold course, Elena repeated. Communications. Open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, Commander. Elena took a deep breath, knowing that what she said next would determine the success or failure of their entire operation. This is Commander Elena Karen of the Terran Coalition vessel Aegis, to all Dominion forces. We have approached to deliver a message. We will maintain our current course and make no hostile actions. Any aggression will be met with proportional response. There was no immediate reply, not that she expected one. The Dominion rarely engaged in direct communication, preferring the language of force to that of diplomacy. Distance to command carrier? She asked. 100,000 kilometers and closing, navigation reported. Intercept in 7 minutes at current velocity. Dominion vessels are holding fire, Tactical added, surprise evident in his tone. They're waiting. Elena nodded. The unexpected approach, combined with the lack of weapons activation, had created exactly the uncertainty she'd hoped for. The Dominion commanders, trained to respond to conventional attacks, were hesitating in the face of this inexplicable behavior. Maintain current speed, she ordered. All stations, prepare for Phase 2. As the Aegis continued its approach, the tactical display showed the captured transports beginning to power up their engines. Subtle, carefully disguised increases in energy output that the distracted Dominion forces might not notice amid the chaos of responding to the frigate's advance. 50,000 kilometers to command carrier, navigation announced. Intercept in 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Dominion vessels adjusting formation, tactical reported. Creating a defensive screen around the carrier, still holding fire. Elena watched the display intently, noting how the Dominion ships had congregated around the command carrier, exactly as she'd hoped. With their attention fixed on the approaching frigate, the eastern sector of the blockade had thinned to the point of vulnerability. Transports are showing increasing power signatures, Morrow observed. The Dominion will detect them soon. Let's make sure they don't, Elena decided. Helm, increase speed to maximum. Let's give them something more interesting to worry about. The Aegis surged forward, its ancient engines screaming in protest as they pushed beyond safe operational parameters. The distance to the command carrier decreased rapidly. 40,000 kilometers, 30,000, 20,000. Commander, at this range, they can't miss, Morrow warned. The moment they decide we're a threat. They won't fire, Elena said with quiet confidence. Not yet. We're an anomaly, a single frigate on what appears to be a suicide run. Their protocols demand analysis before action. At 15,000 kilometers, point-blank range in space combat terms, Elena gave her next order. All stop. Power down weapon systems. Maintain shields at current levels. The Aegis decelerated rapidly, coming to a relative stop directly in front of the Dominion command carrier. The massive vessel dwarfed the coalition frigate, its weapon ports glowing with energy, ready to be unleashed. We are now within their minimum safe firing distance, Tactical reported, his voice tight with tension. They can destroy us with a single volley. And yet they haven't, Elena noted calmly. Because we've done nothing they expected. Communications, status of the transport vessels? Engines at 80% power and rising. They're beginning to move, Commander, breaking from their holding pattern. Good. Elena stood, moving closer to the view screen, where the enormous Dominion command carrier filled the field of vision. Now, communications. Prepare to transmit the data packet to the command carrier. All frequencies. Maximum signal strength. Commander, Communications Officer Tanner looked up in surprise. You want to send them our intelligence data? Exactly as prepared, Elena confirmed. On my mark. The data packet contained the evidence the Aegis had gathered during its week of operations. Proof that the Dominion's blockade was disrupting supply lines, not just to coalition worlds, but to their own colonies as well. The economic projections showing how their perfect strategy was creating food shortages and medical crises on Dominion-controlled planets in adjacent sectors. Transports are accelerating, Morrow reported, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Moving toward the eastern corridor, Dominion patrol vessels have noticed, 2 destroyers breaking off to intercept. Transmit now, Elena ordered. The data packet streamed from the Aegis to the Dominion command carrier, a flood of information that their analytical systems would be compelled to process. Not threats, not demands, but cold, hard facts about the consequences of their own actions. Data transmission complete. Communications confirmed. Elena nodded, her eyes never leaving the massive Dominion vessel before them. Now we wait. The bridge fell silent. Every officer frozen at their station as the moment stretched into eternity. The Aegis hung motionless in space, weaponless, offering neither threat nor submission, simply presence. The Dominion command carrier loomed before them, its weapon ports still glowing with potential destruction. Transports have reached the edge of the blockade, Morrow reported softly. 2 Dominion destroyers in pursuit, but they're falling behind. The transports will clear the junction in 3 minutes. Still, Elena waited, her eyes fixed on the command carrier. This was the crucial moment, when the Dominion would either adapt to new information or revert to their programmed response of overwhelming force. "Commander," Tactical suddenly reported, "the command carrier is powering down its weapon systems." A ripple of disbelief moved through the bridge crew. Elena allowed herself a small smile. "And the destroyers pursuing our transports?" "Receiving new orders," communications reported, intercepting Dominion transmissions. They're being recalled to the command carrier." "All Dominion vessels are adjusting formation," Morrow confirmed, his voice tinged with awe. "They're withdrawing, maintaining a presence but opening the lanes." Elena nodded slowly. "They've processed the data, calculated the cost-benefit analysis, and found their strategy wanting. The blockade was dissolving before their eyes, not in explosive combat or desperate last stands, but in the quiet acknowledgement of economic reality. The Dominion, for all its cold efficiency, was not immune to the basic principles of survival. A strategy that harmed their own population was, by definition, flawed. "Transports have cleared the junction," Morrow reported, "proceeding on course to Coalition space at maximum velocity." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly silenced by a look from Elena. This wasn't over yet. The Aegis still hung in space before the Dominion command carrier, still vulnerable if the enemy chose to revert to type. "Helm, prepare for withdrawal," she ordered. Slow, deliberate course away from the carrier. No sudden movements. As the Aegis began its careful retreat, the communications officer looked up. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the command carrier." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The artificial voice of the Dominion filled the bridge once more, but with a subtle difference, a modulation that suggested it was being generated in real time rather than pre-recorded. "Coalition vessel, Aegis. Your data has been analyzed. Supply convoys will be permitted passage through Junction 7 under strict monitoring protocols. This adjustment is temporary and subject to review. Further hostile actions will result in immediate resumption of full blockade parameters." The message ended abruptly. No threats, no promises, just a cold statement of policy adjustment. But it was enough. The Dominion, in its own way, had acknowledged the validity of the Aegis' silent argument. "Should we respond, Commander?" communications asked. Elena considered for a moment, then shook her head. "No. Let silence be our answer. They've understood our message. Words would only diminish its impact." As the Aegis withdrew from the command carrier, the tactical display showed the Dominion blockade reforming, but with clear paths now open for designated transport vessels. Not a complete victory, but a significant concession from an enemy that never conceded. "Set course for Outpost Kappa," Elena ordered. "Best possible speed with conventional drives. That will take us nearly 3 weeks at maximum sustainable thrust," navigation warned. "Then we'd better get started," Elena replied with a small smile. "We have quite a story to tell when we get there." In the days that followed, the Aegis moved steadily through space, its crew processing what they had accomplished. Without their jump drive, the journey back to Coalition territory would be long and potentially hazardous. But they moved with the quiet confidence of those who had achieved the impossible. Elena spent time with each department, acknowledging their contributions and ensuring they understood the significance of what they had done. In engineering, Jax Horn and his team worked to optimize the conventional drive systems, extracting every possible fraction of acceleration from the aging engines. "We might be able to shave a day or two off the journey," Jax reported, his hands covered in engine grease as usual. "The old girl still has some surprises in her." "Just like her crew," Elena noted with approval. In the medical bay, Sarah Velis had finally found time to treat her own minor injuries from the shuttle mission. Elena found her applying a regeneration patch to a burn on her forearm. "You should have had that treated days ago, Doctor," Elena admonished gently. Sarah shrugged. Others needed attention more urgently, and it's healing well enough. How are our people doing, really? The doctor considered the question seriously. Better than I expected. There's a sense of purpose now, even pride. They stood against the Dominion and didn't break. That means something. Yes, Elena agreed softly. It does. On the bridge, Mauro Valin stood at the tactical station, monitoring the long-range sensors for any sign of pursuit. He straightened as Elena entered, his usual intensity tempered by something new. Respect. Perhaps even admiration. Commander, no sign of Dominion vessels following our course. I believe they're honoring the tacit agreement. Elena nodded, moving to stand beside him at the display. Your thoughts, Lieutenant? You were skeptical of this approach from the beginning. Mauro was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I was trained in conventional tactics, direct action, overwhelming force when possible, calculated risk when necessary. What you did, it wasn't in any tactical manual I've studied. And yet it worked, Elena observed. Yes. Mauro turned to face her fully. It worked because you understood something about the Dominion that our fleet commanders missed. They're not just machines following algorithms. They're capable of adapting when presented with compelling evidence. You use their own logic against them. I gambled with the lives of this crew, Elena admitted quietly. If I had been wrong, but you weren't. Mauro's conviction was absolute. And what you've proven may change the entire approach to this conflict, not just for the Aegis, but for the coalition as a whole. Elena wasn't so certain. The coalition high command had a history of dismissing unconventional tactics, preferring the comfort of established doctrine, even when it failed repeatedly. But perhaps this time would be different. Perhaps the success of one small, outdated frigate might open minds that had been closed for too long. We'll see, Lieutenant. For now, our priority is getting home safely with our findings. In her quarters that evening, Elena recorded her final log entry on the engagement at Junction 7. Her words were careful, precise, documenting not just what they had done, but why it had worked. The psychological underpinnings of their approach, the potential for similar tactics against an enemy that prized predictability and perfect information. The Dominion broke 3 coalition fleets through overwhelming technological superiority, she concluded. But technology is merely a tool. The true strength of humanity lies in our unpredictability, our creativity, our willingness to embrace the irrational when logic fails us. The Aegis succeeded, not because we were stronger or faster or better armed, but because we refused to play by rules designed to ensure our defeat. We broke their blockade by refusing to fight on their terms. And perhaps that is the lesson we must carry forward. That sometimes, the most powerful action is no action at all. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than the most thunderous barrage. She paused, considering whether to add anything more. In the end, she simply said, Commander Elena Karen, signing off. May the stars guide our path home. 2 weeks later, as the Aegis approached the outer markers of Coalition space, they received their first communication from Command, a terse acknowledgement of their status and instructions to proceed directly to Outpost Kappa for debriefing. No mention was made of their actions at Junction 7, no recognition of what they had accomplished. Typical, Mauro muttered as he relayed the message. Bureaucracy at its finest. They'll understand when we present our findings, Elena assured him. Though privately, she shared his concerns. Innovation was rarely welcomed by entrenched authority, especially when it challenged fundamental assumptions. As they made their final approach to Outpost Kappa, a sprawling space station that served as the Coalition's primary forward base in the sector, Elena was surprised to see a small flotilla of vessels move to escort them. Not the usual patrol craft, but transport ships similar to those they had helped free from the Dominion blockade. We're receiving a transmission from the lead transport. Communications reported, audio only. Put it through, Elena ordered. A gruff, civilian voice filled the bridge. Aegis, this is Captain Mercer of the merchant vessel, Northern Star. We heard what you did at Junction 7. Word travels fast, especially good news. We're here to welcome you home proper-like. More transmissions followed. Captains of trading vessels, medical transports, colony supply ships. All had heard about the Aegis and its unconventional victory. All had come to pay respects to the ship that had done what an entire fleet could not. Seems your actions made quite an impression, Commander, Morrow observed, a rare smile softening his features. Not my actions, Elena corrected him. Ours. Every person on the ship contributed to what we accomplished. The escort grew as they approached the station, dozens of civilian vessels forming an impromptu honor guard for the battered frigate. On the station itself, crowds had gathered at the viewport galleries, visible as tiny specks of light moving behind the transparent sections of the structure. Outpost Kappa Control is requesting our docking preference, communications reported, sounding somewhat bewildered. They say we can have any bay we want. Elena smiled. Tell them standard military protocols will be observed. The Aegis may have done something extraordinary, but we're still a coalition vessel. As they made their final approach to the docking bay, Morrow joined Elena at the viewport. They watched in silence as the massive station grew larger, its lights offering welcome after weeks in the darkness of deep space. What happens now? Morrow asked quietly. Will command listen? Will they understand what we've discovered? Elena considered the question carefully. Some will, others won't. Change doesn't happen overnight, especially in military thinking. But we've proven something important, that there are alternatives to direct confrontation, that victory doesn't always require superior firepower. And if they don't listen, then we keep demonstrating the truth until they do. Elena turned to face her tactical officer. The Aegis may be just one ship, Lieutenant, but we've shown what one ship can accomplish when it refuses to accept defeat. Imagine what an entire fleet could do with the same approach. Morrow nodded slowly, his gaze returning to the approaching station. The Dominion won't be caught off guard the same way again. They'll adapt, modify their algorithms. Of course they will, Elena agreed. And we'll adapt in turn. That's the advantage of human unpredictability. It can't be reduced to code, can't be contained in algorithms. It evolves. It surprises. It defies expectation. As the Aegis settled into its docking bay, Elena took one last look around the bridge, at the crew who had accomplished the impossible, who had faced the overwhelming might of the Dominion and emerged not just alive, but victorious. They were tired, their uniforms worn, their equipment patched and jury-rigged. But there was something in their bearing that hadn't been there when this mission began, a quiet confidence, an understanding of their own worth. Secure from docking procedures, Elena ordered. Prepare for standard debriefing protocols. And, she paused, looking at each officer in turn. Thank you for your trust, your courage, your determination. What we've done here matters. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Hours later, after the initial debriefing with Outpost Command, Elena stood alone at a viewport in the station's observation deck. Behind her, the sounds of celebration drifted from the recreation areas, where the crew of the Aegis were being treated as heroes by station personnel and civilian traders alike. Before her, the stars stretched into infinity, the same stars that had witnessed their silent standoff with the Dominion. She heard footsteps approaching but didn't turn, recognizing Morrow's distinctive gait. Command wants a full tactical analysis, he reported, coming to stand beside her. Every detail, every decision point. I think they're actually listening. Good, Elena nodded. The more they understand, the better chance we have of changing the strategic approach. The crew is already talking about our next mission, Morrow added. They're calling themselves Ghost Fighters now. Seems we've started something of a movement. Elena smiled at that. Let's hope it's a movement toward peace rather than just another form of warfare. The goal isn't to defeat the Dominion through cleverness, Lieutenant. It's to show them that cooperation serves both our interests better than conflict. Do you think they'll see it that way, the Dominion? I mean, in time, Elena said with quiet certainty. If we're persistent enough, patient enough. The evidence we provided about their own supply chain vulnerabilities was compelling precisely because it was true. Truth has a power all its own. If we have the courage to wield it. Morrow nodded, then fell silent, both of them watching the stars together. After a while, he spoke again. You know, when I was first assigned to the Aegis, I was disappointed. An outdated frigate on routine patrol duty. It felt like a step backward. I wanted to be where the action was, on the front lines. And now? Elena asked. Now I understand that the front lines aren't always where you expect them to be. Morrow's expression was thoughtful. Sometimes the most important battles are fought in the quiet spaces, in the moments of decision, rather than the moments of action. Well said, Lieutenant. Elena turned from the viewport. We should join the others. They've earned their celebration. What about you, Commander? You've earned it more than anyone. Elena shook her head slightly. My celebration is seeing them safe, seeing what we accomplished together. That's enough for me. As they walked back toward the sounds of laughter and music, Elena thought about the Aegis, currently undergoing repairs in the station's maintenance bay. The old ship would receive a new jump drive, fresh supplies, perhaps even some upgraded systems if Command was feeling generous. But its greatest strength would remain unchanged, not its weapons, or its shields, or its technology, but the human hearts and minds that gave it purpose. The Archon Dominion had broken 3 coalition fleets through overwhelming force, but they had failed to break the spirit of one small frigate and its determined crew, and perhaps that, in the end, would prove to be their greatest miscalculation. For while fleets could be destroyed and technologies could be countered, the human capacity for adaptation, for innovation, for finding strength in apparent weakness, that was a resource without limit. A weapon that could never be neutralized. A shield that could never be penetrated. The war was far from over. The Dominion remained a formidable enemy, their technological advantage still overwhelming on paper. But something had changed in the equation. A variable had been introduced that their perfect algorithms couldn't account for. Hope. Not the desperate hope of the cornered or the false hope of the deluded, but the quiet, resilient hope of those who have seen the impossible made possible through their own efforts. The kind of hope that spreads from person to person, ship to ship, world to world. The kind of hope that, given time, might transform even the coldest heart of the Dominion itself. For now, though, Elena was content with what they had accomplished. 6 transports freed, vital supplies delivered, a blockade broken without a single shot fired. One small victory in a vast conflict, a ripple in an ocean of war. But ripples, given time, could become waves, and waves, given persistence, could reshape even the most unyielding shore. The Aegis had shown the way. Others would follow. And in that knowledge, Commander Elena Karen found a peace deeper than any she had known in years of conflict, the peace of one who has found her true purpose and fulfilled it without compromise. The stars would continue to witness their struggles, their triumphs, their moments of doubt and discovery, the silent sentinels of space, watching as humanity fought not just for survival, but for the right to define that survival on their own terms. And somewhere in that vast, star-filled darkness, the ripples of change continued to spread outward, touching worlds and lives far beyond the reach of one small frigate that had dared to stand against the tide.